The year is 1726. In the small village of Godalming, just southwest of London, a most extraordinary medical case is about to unravel, one that will captivate a nation, baffle the greatest scientific minds of the age, and expose just how easily even the most educated among us can be deceived. This is the strange but true story of Mary Toft, the woman who convinced all of England she was giving birth to rabbits. Our tale begins in September of that year, when Mary Toft, a 25-year-old illiterate servant, pregnant with what would have been her fourth child, began experiencing terrible pains. Local midwives were summoned to her modest home, expecting to deliver a baby. But what emerged from Mary's womb that day defied all medical understanding, not a human child, but something far more disturbing. The first birth produced only animal parts, a rabbit's leg, still covered in soft fur. Then came a rabbit's head, its dead eyes staring blankly at the horrified attendants. Over the next several weeks, Mary would give birth to no fewer than 17 such ghastly deliveries, sometimes just organs, sometimes nearly complete rabbit carcasses, all appearing to come from her own body. Word of this medical marvel spread like wildfire through the English countryside. In an age before modern obstetrics, when even normal childbirth was poorly understood and incredibly dangerous, this phenomenon struck at the very heart of people's deepest superstitions. Local physician John Howard initially dismissed the claims as nonsense until he witnessed a birth with his own eyes. Even he, a trained medical man, found himself forced to admit something extraordinary was occurring. But what could possibly explain such a thing? The 18th century mind reached for explanations that seem absurd to us today, but made perfect sense in their world view. The dominant theory was that of maternal impression, the belief that a mother's experiences and cravings during pregnancy could physically mark her unborn child. Mary claimed to have had an intense craving for rabbit meat early in her pregnancy, and to have spent time chasing rabbits in the fields. To the physicians of 1726, it seemed plausible that these experiences had somehow imprinted themselves on her unborn child, transforming it into the very animal she had desired. The story grew ever more sensational as it reached London's high society. King George I himself took personal interest in the case, dispatching his own royal surgeon, Nathaniel St. André, to investigate. St. André was no country doctor. He was among the most respected medical men in England, trusted with the health of the royal family. After observing Mary's births firsthand, even he became convinced of their authenticity. In his official report to the king, St. André described in graphic detail how he had witnessed Mary deliver several rabbit pieces, complete with fur and internal organs that appeared freshly formed. But not everyone was convinced. Fellow royal surgeon Cyriacus Aulus, sent to verify St. André's findings, noticed disturbing inconsistencies. The rabbit parts showed signs of having been cut with a knife rather than naturally birthed. Some appeared to have been dead for days before delivery. Most damningly, when Aulus secretly collected some of the birth material and dissected it, he found undigested food in the rabbits' stomachs, impossible if they had truly grown inside a human womb. The turning point came when a sharp-eyed nurse caught Mary's husband, Joshua, attempting to sneak a dead rabbit into her room. Under intense questioning, Mary finally confessed her incredible hoax. For months, she had been inserting dead rabbit parts into her birth canal and then delivering them in front of astonished witnesses. The entire medical establishment had been fooled by a poor, uneducated woman's gruesome performance. The aftermath was brutal for all involved. Mary was arrested and briefly imprisoned as a fraudster. The medical men who had vouched for her authenticity became laughingstocks. St. André in particular saw his once sterling reputation permanently tarnished. The scandal inspired countless satirical cartoons and pamphlets mocking the credulity of the educated elite. One particularly cruel engraving showed a noblewoman giving birth to a full tea set, mocking the idea that maternal impressions could produce anything at all. But the deeper question remains. Why would Mary Toft do such a thing? Modern historians have proposed several theories. Some suggest she was mentally ill, suffering from what we might today diagnose as a severe somatic delusion. Others point to the extreme poverty of her situation. Perhaps she saw an opportunity for financial gain through the notoriety. The darkest interpretation suggests she may have been covering up a miscarriage or stillbirth with this bizarre deception. The case reveals much about the state of medicine and society in 18th century England. This was an era when doctors still believed in spontaneous generation, that life could emerge from non-living matter. The female reproductive system was poorly understood, and women's accounts of their own bodies were often dismissed. In such an environment, Mary's claims didn't seem nearly as impossible as they do to us today. Mary Toft's rabbit births weren't even the only such monstrous birth story of the era. The 17th and 18th centuries saw numerous cases of women allegedly giving birth to animals or strange hybrid creatures. These stories played on deep cultural fears about the boundaries between human and animal, the power of maternal imagination, and the mysteries of reproduction. The psychological dimensions of the case fascinate modern scholars. Mary's performance required incredible physical endurance and pain tolerance. She genuinely appeared to be in labor during her deceptions. Some historians suggest she may have suffered from a condition called pseudocyesis, or false pregnancy, which can produce real physiological symptoms. Others point to the possibility of mass hysteria affecting both Mary and her observers. The legacy of Mary Toft endures as a cautionary tale about the dangers of confirmation bias in science and medicine. The doctors who examined her saw what they expected to see, what their medical training had prepared them to see. Even when faced with evidence that should have revealed the hoax, their preconceptions blinded them to the truth. Mary herself faded into obscurity after her brief moment of notoriety. Historical records show she eventually returned to Godalming and lived out her days in quiet anonymity. But her bizarre story continues to captivate us nearly 300 years later, a testament to humanity's endless capacity for both deception and self-deception, and a reminder that truth is often stranger than fiction. In our modern age of deep fakes and misinformation, Mary Toft's story feels eerily relevant. It challenges us to ask, what medical marvels do we believe in today that future generations will laugh at? What truths are we blind to because of our own cultural preconceptions? And most unsettling of all, if a poor, uneducated 18th century woman could fool an entire nation's medical establishment with nothing but dead rabbits and determination, what might we be falling for right now?